All right, the goal of lesson one in chapter 12, unemployment, is to understand how the labor market is measured. What I want you to do is I want you to watch this video first and then read this article here. So you want to click on that and read this. And when you do both those, you'll find the answers to questions 1, 2, and 3. Now, in question 4 here, I'm just going to kind of explain there are two different types of surveys that the government does. There's what's called the household survey, where about 6,000 members or 6,000 households are called and contacted every month and asked questions like, are you working? Are you not working, but you're looking for work? How long have you been looking for work? They ask a bunch of questions like that. And there's the establishment survey, where government contacts business owners and asks them about the number of people on their payroll. Okay, so these are two different ways to kind of measure a similar thing, right? Now, the establishment survey counts every job uniquely, where the household survey, a person who works a part-time job and then a full-time job, or two part-time jobs, or three part-time jobs, that person is considered employed. So if the person is doing three jobs, that is counted as a 1 in the employment level. In the establishment survey, because firms are asked these questions, and a firm X, doesn't know that their employee is also working at firm Y, all the firm is doing is just reporting how many people are on its payroll, right? So firm X is reporting 10 people on its payroll. Firm Y is reporting 15 people on its payroll. Maybe there's a person working at firm X who's working at firm Y, right? And so those two different jobs by that one person are counted twice in the employer survey. So knowing that, if there are 10,200 previously unemployed workers, right, your number is going to be different than mine, and each found a full-time job, and each also found a second job working part-time, holding everything else constant in the labor market, the household survey employment level would increase by the 10,200, right? Because the person in that household's telling the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that, yeah, I'm working. So that gets counted once, right, in the employment level. So the household survey employment level would increase by 10,200. The number of previously unemployed workers who found a full-time and a part-time job, they're working both, right? Now in the establishment survey, right, 10,200 people found a full-time job at some companies. Those same 10,200 people found part-time jobs at other companies. So both those companies, or all those companies, would report the increases in their payrolls. And that would be 2 times this number. So 2 times that number is 20,400, right? I'll let you answer these questions by watching this video and reading this article, okay? Now, below is how we calculate the various labor market variables from the household survey, right? We have the working age population. We have the labor force size. This is in thousands. So this isn't actually 2,107. It's actually 2,107,000, right? And this isn't 1,561. It's 1.561 million, right? And these are hypothetical data for a hypothetical country, Caucasia, right? And so what we want to do is we want to copy this information to Excel to calculate the level of unemployment, the unemployment rate, the labor force participation rate, and the employment ratio. Okay, so we're going to copy this stuff to Excel. I'm going to paste it, match destination formatting. Okay. I'm going to pull this down, pull all these down here. Okay, and then I'll widen it a little bit so we can see it. And let me also left justify this. Okay, so the level of employment in thousands is the labor force, the number of people in the labor force, minus the level of employment. So this is the number of people who have a job, right? The blue number is the number of people who have a job or are looking for a job. The red box is the number of people who have at least one job, right? And so the level of employment is that difference. And it's a lot smaller than the employment level, right? So this economy probably is pretty healthy, right? Now the level of unemployment can be calculated by dragging this number down, right? It looks like it's widening, right? And it gets widest in 2019, and then it starts to shrink, right? But look at the labor force. The labor force is rising, and then it continues to rise, right? So we can't compare the level of unemployment year to year, right? Because the labor force is increasing every year, right? Maybe it's because the population is increasing, right? If we look at the working age population, it looks like it's increasing every year, right? So that's maybe why the labor force is rising. Okay. But the unemployment level rises, peaks, and then falls. But we can't compare these two numbers. We can't compare these two numbers. So what we want to do is we want to calculate the unemployment rate. And the unemployment rate is just the level of unemployment divided by the labor force size. And we're going to multiply it by 100 to convert it to a percentage. Okay. And then I'll reduce it to 2 decimal places. That's what it says to do up here, right? Reduce 2 decimal places. I'll go even further. I'll format all these cells so they're also 2 percentage places. Okay. So now when I calculate the labor force participation rate and the employment ratio, these will all be in 2 decimal places, right? Now watch the unemployment rate as I calculate it by dragging this formula down, right? So the unemployment rate does rise, right? The unemployment level is rising. Then the unemployment rate falls. The employment level falls. This is in thousands, and this is per 100 in the labor force, right? The unemployment rate does peak in the year 2019 and then falls, right? Just as the unemployment level does, right? So it is highly correlated with the unemployment level. We cannot compare these years to year, but we can compare these years to year, right? Because these are a percent of a growing labor force, right? Now, the labor force participation rate, that is equal to the size of the labor force divided by the working age population. The employment ratio is the employment level divided by the working age population. So both of these here divide by the working age population, right? Now I'm going to copy and paste these values in this table right here, right? So let's just try the first row. The unemployment level in thousands is 72. The unemployment rate is 4.61. The labor force participation rate is 74.09. And the employment ratio is 70.67. And we got them correct. So we'll go ahead and fill in the rest of them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause it. And I'm going to show you what mine looks like after I get them entered and I submit them. Okay, it looks like I got them all correct when I transferred the values from the spreadsheet to Mountain Math. Now, what you want to do is you want to compare or look at how these things are changing over time. And one way to do that is to highlight the year over here, highlight the column year, and then highlight the unemployment rate. Let's do this. We'll do the years and then the corresponding unemployment rates. Then we're going to go to insert. We're going to click on a scatter plot with straight lines, right? And this is the unemployment rate over time. And it looks like the unemployment rate is pretty constant, and then it spikes, and then it declines, and then it's back to where it was, right? So I would say that in the country of Caucasia, that the unemployment rate around just under 5%, perhaps might be the natural unemployment rate. And then Caucasia's economy goes into recession and unemployment goes up, right? And then it declines. Now, the cool thing about Excel is I can copy this diagram, I can set it aside, and I can paste it right here. And then I can just move the box here to the labor force participation rates to see what they look like. And the labor force participation rates, they are flat and then they decline and then they rise rapidly, right? Maybe there was an influx of immigrants here and they got green card status and were able to work, right? So maybe that's what happened there. LFPR, labor force participation rate. Now I can copy that and then I can paste it here, and then I can just do the employment ratio, right? By moving it over here. Employment ratio. And what I can do, since these numbers are similar to labor force participation, I can copy this graph, delete it, and I can paste it on top of this one. So you want to just, move it around. Notice the white circles on the corners. And once you see the white circles on the corner, you can move it around like that. You can hit Control V and you can paste it on top of it. That's the labor force participation rate. And that's the employment ratio. So you can see that from this graph, in the labor force participation rate is pretty mild. And then all of a sudden there's a rise in the labor force participation rate. And then there's a decline, right? And then down here, the employment ratio declines massively because remember we said there's probably a recession in here somewhere, right? So when there's a recession, employment falls off the cliff, but then recovers, right? And it recovers to a higher level. Okay. Maybe people working part-time jobs up here. Maybe the people that lost their job lost income. And so to recoup some of the lost income while they're unemployed, they got a job and a half, right? They got a full-time job and a part-time job to recoup some of that income they lost. So you want to look at these graphs and see how the trends are moving through time, right? Okay, for the following answers, you want to use this data. Now, the cool thing about this Fred graph is I can move through time here, right? This is the December 2019. February 2020, I can move through time, right? And it's monthly, all the way up through the end, which is March 2024, right? So up here, I'm looking at initially at January 2019, right? So I need to find the working age population. Okay, so maybe what I want to do is I have the employment level, the civilian labor force level, and the working age population, right? So what I can do is I can download this data. Here's the data I just downloaded, right? Save, enable saving. Okay, so I saved it this PC. This is the employment level. We usually denote that E, right? We're going to change this to date, just date. And it's obviously monthly, right? Because you see the months increase and the year eventually increase, right? This right here is the labor force level, right? I'm going to call that LF. So this is the working age population. We usually call it WAP, working age population. And all three of these are in thousands, right? They're in thousands. So I'm going to shrink the number of decimal places here. And then skinny it up a little bit. Okay, and then we got to find out what it's asking here, right? So for me, I want to calculate values first for January 2019, right? So I'm going to find January 19 in here. January 2019 is right here. I'm going to make that bold and red. And the other month I want is February 2022. Your months might be different than mine, right? February 2022. I'll make that bold and red. Okay, so those ones I'm interested in. And the working age population in January of 2019 in my model, and it says 2 decimal places, but these have to be in millions, right? These have to be in millions. Currently, they're in thousands, right? So this is 156,487. To get it into millions, to get this is the thousands. These are all in thousands, right? We want millions. I'm going to copy these 3 things here. I'm going to convert them to millions, right? So the way you convert them to millions is divide each by 1,000. Now these are in millions, right? And then I only want 2 decimal places. So I'm going to go over here to home, number, and reduce the number of decimal places to 2. And I want to do the same thing for the other year, right? For the year 2022, February 2022. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to paste the formulas here. And just make sure that the decimal places are, in fact, 2 decimal places. Okay, so I have the working age population in millions. I have the labor force in millions, and I have the employment level in millions. So in the month January 2019, the working age population in the United States is 206.32 million people in the working age population. The labor force level, the labor force size was 162.96 million. The employment level is 156.49 million. Now I got to calculate the unemployment level, right? The unemployment level in millions let me shrink this up here, is the difference in the labor force and the employment level. Remember that? So in January of 2019, the employment level was 6.48 million people. 6.48 million people without a job. In order to be in the employment level, in order to be counted in the employment level, not only do you have to not have a job, but you have to be looking for a job, right? So the unemployment level is 6.48 million. Now to get the unemployment rate, we want to need percent, right? So we need a lowercase u. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the unemployment level, 6.48 million. We're going to divide that by the labor force size, and we're going to multiply it by 100. I'm going to reduce that to 2 decimal places. Okay, so that's the unemployment rate. The labor force participation rate, LFPR, that is equal to the labor force size divided by the working age population times 100. And then the last one is the employment ratio. And that is the employment level divided by the working age population times 100. We're going to shrink these to 2 decimal places. Okay, and then I'm going to just copy this down to February 2022 values. Let me freeze the panes as well. Freeze panes. That allows me to scroll down to my other time period, right? Now it's just a matter of recording the values, right? So let's go back up here. The unemployment rate was 3.97%. The labor force participation rate was 78.98. Okay, so the employment ratio was 75.85. Now we're going to scroll down to February 2022 to get those numbers. Right? It looks like we got everything right. So all you have to do to finish off this lesson is, again, watch this video, read through this technical document to answer these 4 answer boxes.